is the beautiful cemetery of Guanajuato, Mexico. We were lucky enough as a family to visit this place during the Day of the Dead and see the beautiful decorations on the graves. In this cemetery, there are walls and walls of people who have died and have been placed inside a pretty small space in the wall. I found it very interesting. How did they put these people inside those spaces? In 1833, there was a cholera outbreak and many people in Mexico were dying. They laid people to rest at a fast rate to prevent the spread of the disease. It is believed that some were buried alive.
What are we doing?
We're going to see live mummies.
Live
dead mummies.
This is Crystal's most.
This is crazy.
Excited to go inside this place. I had no idea what I was going to see. I really just couldn't believe there was mummies inside that building. I knew that the whole culture of death in Mexico was different than mine from the beginning. I knew that when someone died, they were celebrated for many years to come. In my culture, death was hidden or not talked about as much. The big difference was very interesting. When I entered the room, the first thing I noticed was the mummies still had shoes and clothes on, and that their hair was still intact. The way their mouths hung open made me wonder if they were screaming or something. It was terrifying. I later found out that this is the natural way that your mouth opens when there's no muscles holding it closed. Ignacia Aguilar, for example, suffered from cholera, but also had a rare disease where her heart could simply stop, sometimes for a whole day. Her family thought that she had died and buried her in the same day in fear of getting sick themselves. She must have woke up at some point, realizing she was buried alive. She was found face down in her coffin, and it seemed like she had tried to open the coffin, pushing her back against the lid. Unfortunately, she failed to escape her horrible fate. In her desperation, she must have bitten her arms. Her face was also covered in scratches. So horribly sad. Between 1855 and 1858, many of the bodies were dug up, not because the relatives wanted their loved ones to get a proper burial, but because the Mexican government decided to raise heavy taxes on the graves. Many poor Mexicans couldn't pay these taxes, so the dead were excavated. The grave diggers stumbled upon something they didn't expect. The dead didn't turn into skeletons, but into perfectly preserved mummies. The dry Mexican heat, as well as the low humidity, dried the bodies in a natural way. These bodies were stored in a storage closet at the back of the cemetery. By the 1900s, the mummies began attracting tourists. Cemetery workers began charging people a few pesos to enter the building where the bones and mummies were stored. This was the beginning of what is now the Museum of Mummies. The experience was very, very interesting to me. I decided that I feel like when a person dies, their spirit isn't in their body anymore. So looking at these bodies that once had a spirit was more of an interesting thing to me than something that was sad or bad to be observing. This was such a wonderful, crazy experience that I got to have with my kids. There are just some crazy things in this world to see.